Hey everyone, it's the Oxley Bomb MotoGP podcast back again with me, Matt Oxley, old journalist, old racer, and Peter Bomb, old data guy, old journalist, old crew chief. This is a very special, I wouldn't say historic, Oxley Bomb podcast because we're coming to you via video as well as audio, so you get to see our ugly mugs. So sorry about that, but I think it's worth it because this is a very special podcast because what we are doing for the first time, we've been planning this for a long time, and this is our first dip into it. So, if it's not perfect, please forgive us, but we're going to get better. The only way we're going to learn is by getting better and doing it, starting off where we are now. So what we're doing is delving into the word of data recording, which is obviously Peter's speciality. He's been doing it for years. He's won a couple of world championships doing it, so he knows what he's talking about. So I don't know how some of you may know a bit about data recording. Some of you might know nothing about it. Some of you might not have seen a data recording graph before. More than 30 years ago when this started happening, I was working for Team Roberts Yamaha, and they used to call it the Department of Squiggly Lines. So that's basically what it is. You're looking at a computer screen with all these peaks and troughs in it, these squiggly lines, and we are here to tell you what they all mean. But specifically, what this podcast is about this new trickery, well, fairly new, that's been going on in MotoGP for a few years. Basically, all the teams can steal data from each other. How do they do this? How do they steal data? They steal it from the Dorna seat cam. As you know, when you see an onboard lap, live or just a segment of an onboard lap, but particularly when somebody gets pole position or whatever, Dorna will put out that video of the whole lap. And the other teams can, with all the sort of computer trickery that you've got now, they can use that video and get so much information. They can get the speed of the bike, they can get the RPM of the motorcycle, they can get the throttle, amount of throttle the rider's using, the amount of brake he's using. They can harvest all this stuff from the Dorna camera, which is Dorna's property. All that data is Dorna's property to use for the on-bike stuff. So the teams can't tamper with it. So that's the one thing to know. So what we're doing today is going through Pecco Bagnaio's pole position lap at Assen 2024. So this is 2024 latest stuff, and we've got the screen on the left. We'll explain it all in a minute, and to the right of the data screen is a lap of Assen. So what Peter's going to do first of all is just quickly take us around using the speed line, which is the green line in front of you. That's the speed of the motorcycle, and he's going to quickly take you around and just say where we are, just so you get an idea of how the whole lap fits together. So take us away, Peter. You're accelerating out of the chicane and you're going up the start-finish straight and to that first peak. So take it away from there. Thank you very much. Remember to number the corners as you go.
Yeah, 260 km per hour on the start-finish straight, and going to 300 km per hour Pecco Bagnaia on his Ducati this year. Before he hits the brakes severely, goes down to 130 km per hour for turn 1. There's a hard acceleration to nearly 200 km per hour for the fast kink. Breaks off a lot to 107 km per hour for the long, everlasting last-hander turn 3 and turn 4. Then he goes down a lot more to turn 5 with only 61 km per hour in the middle of turn 5.
That's about 40 miles an hour. It's that you could almost fall over balance at that speed, couldn't you?
Exactly. I think the average track day rider doesn't do a lot worse than that. The difference is, okay, we come to the difference later. Hard acceleration up to 315 km per hour towards the end, which is on the map more or less turn 6. It's called turn, it's fast right-hander kink. Braking shortly and hard to 165 km per hour. Short acceleration, 203 km per hour for turn 8. That's turn 7. Then turn 8, only 124 km. That's a famous one because it has some banking. That's
which corner is that? Where are we now?
That's turn 8 we are now. Yeah.
So Steckenval, otherwise known as?
Steckenval, perfectly met. you know the history.
Just trying to quickly, very famous corner. I'm just trying to, give people an idea where we are. That's where Brad Binder ran off at, got his third place cancelled at Assen in 2023, just to tell you where we are. And then
because you can see it also on the track map on the right and the white, that after turn 8 it sort of comes back a little bit. So when you're already early out of turn 8 on the curbs, you're never going to make it. You're going to touch the green. So hard acceleration through fourth gear, shortly to fourth gear here, 255 kilometer per hour. Hard braking for turn 9, the Bult, obviously Matt knows. 111 kilometers per hour minimum speed for a very short time in this corner, which is actually over square because you have to come back completely to the left afterwards. Short acceleration 160, hard braking for turn 10, Mandeveen 100 kilometers per hour only. Easy to lose the front there because it's all about the front tire there. Short acceleration to turn 11, Mandeveen, Duikersloot is a famous combination. For the riders, it's just an everlasting right-hander where you have
you can just see where the riders just rolled off the throttle a little bit there to get through Myanmar.
Exactly. Now comes 12, one of the typical Assen things is turn 13. It's called Hoge Heide. Sorry, 12, Meeuwmeer. That's a difficult con because we're accelerating second gear, third gear. Here we accelerate full gas in third gear. And what they all do, which is very funny, even on the Moto3, even in Supersport 600, even Superbikes, even MotoGP, they're all the same. You arrive at turn 12 in third gear, you short shift to 450 immediately, and you roll over a little bit of throttle.
Oh, right, that's Myanmar there. Right, sorry, I was confused. That's Myanmar.
We are now
there.
on 12, Meeuwmeer. You see the throttle trace here on the bottom, but later we explain the data some more. You're closing it partly, coming back to full throttle in fifth gear all the way. Sixth gear even to 296 kilometers per hour. That's about time to start braking for turn number 15, because 13 doesn't really exist. It's just a fast kink. We go there flat out.
So that's Ramshoek, isn't it?
We're going into the Ramshoek now.
Yeah, which is just one of the scariest corners.
That's the one. There's a lot in this little set of data that we can discuss later in more depth, Matt. So middle of the Ramshoek, 183 kilometers per hour. Again, short acceleration in fourth gear until we suddenly see the last chicane appearing for us with 320 kilometers per hour. Very, very hard braking, bringing it over from left, upright to the right and turning in. Middle of that chicane, 99 kilometers per hour. Hard acceleration right here, where my cursor is, you can see that there is a little hesitation with the throttle. It's not because he doesn't know what he's doing, but it's helping the bike changing direction in the middle of that right-left chicane. And then hard over to the start-finish straight. This was a very, very effective lap. You can see in the bottom 1 minute 30.5. This is actual data from Pecco Bagnaya's pole position lap from this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean,
how do I get
whenever I see a data screen, I'm like, wow. And the fact that they can just steal this off each other just makes it even cooler. I mean, it's just nuts, really. All right, Peter, so we're going to so that was a full lap of Assen, fastest ever lap of Assen in the history of the circuit, which is, I think it's Assen's 100th birthday in 2025, isn't it? 1925.
There's always discussions with the amount of years. I'm not going in there, Matt.
I've been going to every race since they started. Now we're going to go into this in more detail, but at least you can look at the screen, and by following that green throttle opening, speed, getting confused already, the green speed line, you can see exactly where the rider is on track, and there's so much more we can learn. Teams can learn from this information, as Peter's going to explain to you. What are you going to do further? Are you going to take us around corner by corner, or?
No. The main thing at the moment, Matt, because it's for me, it's a really special to have this data. Because you and everybody in the world should ask yourself, how the fuck does Peter Bom in Assen has this data of Pecco Bagnaya's bike? Well, everybody can have it, but it's not very easy. I'm quite simple, so I didn't do it myself. But I found somebody, and it wasn't too difficult actually, who was able to create this data. Because for me, the most important thing of this pod at the moment is explaining how do I actually get data from Pecco Bagnaya's bike? Because I don't think I need to go to David the Dutch and give him my USB stick and ask for some data. That's not going to work out very, very well. So, but we have it. It is his data. So to start with, how do we get it? It's something that I learned from an engineer, a friend of mine that works in Germany in car racing. I can't even say the class or the manufacturer. And he told me already 1 or 2 years ago that it's a bit of a common thing in top car racing car to to analyze each other's videos and create data from that. So I asked him to do the same, and here he comes. How it is done is this. On all the MotoGP bikes, Matt, there is one connector that is compulsory there on every bike. It's not by free choice because Dorna wants that connector. And inside that connector is over a sort of a CAN bus transmission. It's a couple of signals hanging there ready to be taken off.
Just explain very quickly what a CAN bus is.
A CAN bus is actually when you have a lot of signals to transfer from left to right, but you want to do it only with 2 wires, you use a CAN bus. Otherwise, every signal needs its own wire. And we are speaking about speed, RPM, throttle, brake pressure, banking angle, and I think a lot more information is available on the CAN line. You don't want to do that with 20,000 cables. So that's why people invented the CAN bus years ago. CAN bus is basically 2 or 4 wires, and they consist all the data. Each part of data has its own address and so on, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's a simple way to transfer a lot of information just through a couple of cables. So every MotoGP bike has this connector. And when the Dorna goes to the bikes and put on their cameras, then they connect it all to that connector. That camera obviously needs power, but it also is connected to the bike's data. That in turn is connected to a radio frequency system that transmits this information live all the time over a couple of antennas around the track. And so in the end, you and me at home, we can watch Pecco Bagnaia riding the whole lap. And in that lab, we can see the build from the picture from his onboard camera. Usually we're looking at the back of the rider. I'm going to show you the picture here because we all know this is the camera that I speak about usually. And this is a typical example of what we see when Pecco Bagnaia, actually this one is not Assen, this is from the video from Bisano, I think it is. Now, by watching this video, there is people that can write software that reads the font, that reads the letters or the numbers.
That's just, so if you read to me, that's speed, just insane that they can.
Yeah, that's the mind-blowing thing. So
it gives you an idea of how computers are going. That you can just, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. So you can just have your
but
computer.
Dorna gives it away a little bit because within 1 hour after qualifying on Saturday, there is this video on the Dorna website and on YouTube. This video following the rider exactly the complete lap. And then they show a lot of information here, and they show it all the time, more or less in the same position. So clever people started to say, okay, if that information is there, I'm going to write. First, I'm going to steal that video, which is already not so easy because it's supposed to be not stealable. It is in the end always stealable. And then people write software to read the font, to read the speed. If you read the speed all the time, you can convert this speed into a .csv file, which can then be imported into the 2D data system analysis software, and suddenly we have lines going up and down. So how do we get this information? We have obviously the speed.
Peter, can you quickly explain what, or shall I quickly explain what the other numbers are in that the circle?
Feel free.
So I'm just going to quickly explain. I think I might get it right. Peter might have to correct me. So the top number, 53, that's degrees, but they cannot use this number, the lean angle, in this Dorna theft project because the lean angle isn't always there. So they can't use that in their data set. Below that is the speed, 124 kilometers an hour. This is coming onto the back straight or one of the back straights at Misano, by the way. 124 kilometers an hour. If you want to know how to convert kilometers into miles an hour, it's divided by 1.61. But very roughly, 80 kilometers is 50 miles an hour. 160 kilometers is 100 miles an hour. 320 kilometers is 200 miles an hour. It's quite. You just have to get used to doing that. Below that is the gear position. You can just see he's in second gear. Bagnaia is in second gear here. And then the green line under the 53 degrees is the throttle. So you can see he's on a lot of throttle there. And when he hits the brakes, you'll see the red line come out to the right. And that's about it there, isn't it?
Yeah, there we got it more or less, Matt. The thing is the banking angle. Now we have we have miles per hour on the bottom and we have kilometers in the top. Yeah. This is one of the problems from the guys who are writing the software to read this, is that it's jumping. What is banking is suddenly mile per hour or speed. So that is they have a lot of challenges, And one of the funny challenges is, for example, if the rider on pole has a red shoot like Pecco has, then sometimes the brake is difficult to read because the way they read it, I'm going to do step by step. They read
just
the
very
speed
quickly,
signal.
Peter. How does it read? How does the computer read that? Is it with are they pointing a video at those numbers, or is it reading it on screen?
No, they steal the video, and then they let software sort of stare at the video and tell them in what area exactly is the speed, and then explain them the font. This is a 9, this is a 7, this is a 6, and so on. So learning the software to recognize the font is helping them to read the speed. And in this case, is the brake is a bar that is, when it's nearly completely like now, this is 100% brake pressure. When you don't see it, it's 0 brake pressure. So I'm going back to the other picture, this one here. This has the throttle on almost 100% and no brake. So there's always brake or throttle. There is, in this case, speed and banking. And there is the gear number. So these are the channels that the software reads. You learn the software to read it correctly. And then you have these signals. So I go back to my data screen. Here we have the speed, the throttle, we have the brake in yellow, and we have the gear position. And there is one more thing that I have on the data here, which is RPM. When he's on the end of the backstreet, it goes 18,579 RPM. When he comes back to the Ramshoek, he's full in 6 with less speed, but he has banking, and suddenly he goes 18,700 RPM back up. How do we know that? Because that RPM is not here. Well, that was the other trick. These guys loves a challenge. And he said, well, I just recorded the audio file. So I record the RPM from the bike. And I put that through a lot of complicated filters and did calculations with it. And suddenly it is RPM. So
that's amazing.
It could be wrong, but not far off. It's impossible to be far off. So you also see that there is some moments where it doesn't work, like where I am now with the cursor.
Right.
So after the top speed of 350 kilometers per hour, you see the speed drop and the RPM drop, and suddenly the RPM drops a lot more and then comes back without any change in gear position. That's not happening.
Right. So that's
happens.
An error.
Yeah. So that's just an error that, for example, when the wind comes really hard over one area of the microphone, then the filter doesn't pick up the RPM anymore.
Wow.
But in the end, this is how it is done. Now, I have in this computer.
Can I quickly just go from the top and just tell everybody, make sure that everybody's fully with
us?
Feel
free.
So at the very top, we've got the grey sort of step graph up there. It's you can very easily see that's gear position going up and down. So it's in steps. Then next is the red, which is the throttle. And then the next is the green, which is the speed.
Sorry, wait. No. Red is RPM, go up and down, up and down.
Shit, sorry.
Yeah. And then the green comes the speed.
I'm a moron.
Then on the bottom we have and then in pink we have the throttle. When it's a flat line here, it's 100% throttle. When it sort of goes down and disappears, it's 0
Which
throttle.
Is the throttle again?
The pink one on the bottom.
The pink, right? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Pink one on the bottom. In between the pink hills is a yellow one, which is brake pressure.
Right. Yeah,
so
there we go.
If you allow me, I'll zoom in a little bit to a situation that we all know quite well in Assen. We are coming over the start-finish straight. And right at the moment that we go 300 kilometers per hour and 18,500 RPM in fifth gear, because you just explained gear, RPM, speed, throttle is full throttle here. On this moment, Pecco closes the throttle, and in yellow, he builds up brake pressure. So at that moment, he starts to do it. You see the speed go down, you see the RPM goes down. So he's braking not a lot initially, then more and more and more. And really, that's the typical thing with MotoGP.
I love that how you can see he's
modulating the brake pressure.
Yeah, modulating the brake. He's hit the brakes first, so you've got a bit of a peak at the beginning, and then he's obviously lets it off a bit because probably he's locking the front tire or getting very close. He's like, whoa, that's as much as it can take, and he's let off the brake a tiny little bit, and then he's pulled it back on.
This moment here at the end where we see the brake pressure quite high, and we see it completely linear, pretty steep, going down to 0, and immediately picks up the throttle. So this means this guy knows exactly where he is, and he knows exactly that if he keeps the brake a little bit longer with this pressure, with this little speed, because the lower the speed is, the less load you have on your tire, I'm going to crash. So he opens the brake, goes immediately to maximum banking angle and picks up the throttle. Little hesitation here in the throttle, definitely because of extra slide, and then he's on full throttle again. So this is how we can do the whole lap. But the real trick for me is having seen somebody creating this. It took this person, this engineer, quite some time to do it the first time. Now it's like a script. He can do it again and again. And as long as Donna doesn't start to play around with these bars, put them in another position, give them another color, it's just a copying thing. So I have in my computer data from Pacomia 2004, but also 2023. So at some point, maybe in another podcast, Matt, if you feel like it, we're going to compare 23 with 24 from Pecco Bagnaia, because what was different? There was quite a good lap time difference in it. And by overlaying these two data sets, we can see where the lap time difference is actually made.
Yeah, that would be amazing, because obviously, as most of our listeners all know, that we had a huge improvement in performance in 2024, especially from the Ducati GP24, which is why the guys on the GP23 couldn't really compete with them. So that would actually be really interesting to see where the GP24 makes the difference. And the thing with data, it doesn't lie. And this is a thing for riders that I remember when data first arrived, it was a bit of a nightmare for riders, because they couldn't lie anymore. They couldn't come in and say, oh, the bike's not doing this right, or it's not doing that right, because the engineer would just look at the data and said, you're full of shit, mate. It's perfect,
Yeah, up to a point, Matt, up to a point.
Okay.
Sometimes riders can, you cannot hide a lot. If you say you are in fifth gear and you are in sixth, you're lying. If you say you're on full throttle, you're not, you're lying.
Yeah.
But a motorbike is such a complicated thing that if a very special rider is compensating for things that the bike doesn't want to do, then on data it looks like everything's perfect. Well, why the hell are you complaining? Yeah, because I'm compensating for it. I learned that when I needed to look for the problem from the bike, it's the first 2 laps after he left the box. That's when he expects something and it doesn't happen the way he expects it, and then when you see the problem. But coming back to this data set here with Pecco, just again to summarize, all the bikes have this connector with this information. All the bikes have cameras and microphones on them. So race direction have from all the bikes on the tracks all the time, all the speeds, all the RPMs. It's just that the TV director chooses, we want to see this picture, we want to see that picture. And we are lucky that from the pole position, that lap is like I know, as far as I know, almost always within 1 hour on television, available for the public. And so we can analyze it. And if we can do it, then, I mean, I'm a simple guy. I'm just fortunate enough to have a guy that was a lot smarter than me in my telephone book. And he said, no, I can do something like that. And even he said it's not rocket science, but that's him just being polite and being shy. It is almost rocket science to me.
Peter, so do you want to put this out an hour or so after qualifying? How long would it take once you feed that the onboard lap into all your clever software? How long would it take your software to spit out the data?
Yeah, first of all, I'm still not doing it myself, but my friend told me that now he has more or less find out the correct filters for the noise and so on and so on. As long as Donna doesn't change anything on the video format, he has it within maximum half an hour. Wow. That's including a couple of checking yourself, your work, if you're really still there. And so he can have it in half an hour. I'm sure everybody can do that within half an hour. So I looked around and talked around a little bit in the paddock, especially in Barcelona. And obviously, I can't name anybody, but there were 1 or 2 teams that I could see in the eyes. They were like, whoa. And there were other teams that were just saying, being polite, yes, but they already know for years. I know for a fact Ducati knows for years.
Yeah,
I'm even pretty sure there is a company in Italy that probably once started off at Ducati with some students, and they offer this kind of service, including more video analysis service, but including this one. There's in Italy a company that offers this service to teams. I know 2 manufacturers were using it at least this season. We're working with that company to get this type of information from the competition. And the competition usually means a Ducati, because that's the bike on pole position all the time.
We know that Ducati for 5 years at least have been using the seat cam to help them understand the science of body position, how the right. So basically, and they do this with the VW, the Volkswagen Data Lab in Munich. So the VW lab gets all the video footage from the seat cam, and using AI and machine learning and all other kind of clever softwares like Peter's.
Yeah, but there is one
They
note.
can work out exactly where the rider is sitting on the bike, and then they can work out where he's putting load from that. So Ducati have obviously been using they're just always ahead of everyone else, pretty much, aren't they? They're like,
this thing here.
We can use this. We can use this for our help. And I guess now everyone will know about this, won't they? So they're all stealing from each other. So it kind of, I guess,
from each other.
Out.
Be careful, because all the bikes are fitted with the cameras, but the footage is not available. It's actually spicy. Dorna has all the footage from all the bikes from every second that they are on the track. But the race director decides what I put on air, and only what is on air can be taken and analyzed.
Yeah.
So
point.
if I was Yamaha, I would go to to Dorna and the race or the TV director, and ask him to be very kind and maybe give us some extra information about all these Ducati laps that they're doing. Because you can study the competition now only from the data that is on air, that is available to the public.
Sure. So basically, whoever's going fastest, it hurts them. But Dorna are probably quite happy about that, because Dorna are very keen on letting the others catch up. So they'll be like, well, Ducati, that's your fault for being fastest. Your stuff's going to get spied on, sorry.
My sources told me that this at Ducati was done since 2015 or at least 2016.
Wow.
And now I spoke to one or two manufacturers that at least quite a high engineer in the box was really like, wow, is this possible? Okay, nearly painful.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, but at the same time, some of these race teams can be, especially the Japanese race teams, can be so divided that the people you speak to in the box don't know the same as the people at the factory what they're doing themselves. Can be that in Japan they're doing this all the time, but forgot to tell the Europeans. I don't know.
Yeah, possible.
Can
possible. Are there any other parts of the track that you want to zoom in on? I wouldn't mind zooming on Myanmar. I think can you bring back up the track map, please, Peter?
Yeah. Wait a second. Here it is. Yeah.
Okay. So
I have to apologize because as a data engineer, it's impossible not to have automatically always the track position with you when you screen, when you follow your lines. But this is a very, very special way of creating data. It's not. I would love to have a 2D data recorder fitted on the bikes, like Yamaha still does, and then analyze everything immediately in 2D data. But we can't. We steal data, convert it from CSV files into, and then at some point you lose the connection with the track position. That's why in white and black I have the track map over there.
Sure. Can you point out Myanmar, turn 12?
Wait a second, here we are.
On the map.
So this is on the map.
Yes.
On the map, I'm now
just,
at Myanmar
just to
turn 12.
explain to people, to fans, if I can, try and explain to you what Myanmar is. So you got the double right at the very bottom of the circuit, and then they accelerate real fast, and they go through that scary fast right-hander. I mean, really, Myanmar is one of the greatest corners of the whole championship. And fast corners are extra important because that's where a rider can make a real difference. Okay, there's not a long straight after it, but
No, but you carry 5 kilometer more speed mid-corner through that kink. You bring it all the way with you.
Exactly.
And now we see 296 in the end, but then suddenly it's 304. So you can. The interesting thing here, I don't know, in your times, 1,000 years ago when you were riding bikes, you did the same. But I already come for years with all types of bikes with data on Assen. I live in Assen. And usually all the classes, all the bikes do the same. You arrive on third gear out of turn 11, you do second, third. You're going to turn 12 in third gear on a high RPM, and you look at the top to the white or the gray line here where my cursor is. You go from 3, 4, 5.
Right.
You do 3, 4, 5, and you back off a little bit of throttle,
because the bike's going to be more friendly in a higher gear, right?
No, the reason they do it is because you jump the bike already completely on your side at the same moment. It's one very quick, a very, very precise action that you do. You go up 2 gears, you roll the throttle off, and you flick it in on your right. You start on the curbs on the left, flick it on your knee, hit the curbs on the inside, run out to the curbs on the outside again, and that's when you've done a really, really sweet Meomer. And the reason that you go 2 gears and only part throttle is that you go to the side of the tire, which suddenly makes your wheel a lot smaller than it is upright.
Yeah, sure.
So if we follow the RPM, for example, we arrive here on 17,600 RPM.
We're looking at the cross on Peter's cursor, by the way.
Yeah, we do. We drop down 2 gears, but suddenly we see the RPM hasn't dropped that much because we banked the bike. If this was my data, I
obviously with a motorcycle, that's
angle.
One of the super complicated things about it, much more complicated than car racing, that in the middle, when the bike is upright, it's on the center of the tire, which has a much greater circumference than the circumference of the tire on the very edge. So
and that changed
when you used to be able to see it on what was the flick on the back straight call before they changed it?
Oh, wow! Now you got me.
Come on.
Yeah, you live in Assen. The Veenslang before you went to the because now it's called the slow Ruskhoek. It's Veenslang, Ruskhoek, Stekkerwal. The
Ruskhoek. It was Ruskhoek. You used to be able to watch the 500s there, and it was a super fast right-left flick, like 5th gear on the 500s. And as they went through that, you would hear them, they'd be going, what? And as they leant right, it would go, and then then it would go, as they brought it back up to, and then when they went left, the RPM would go up again. It would just...
Funny you say
shivers down your spine watching that. Shivers down your spine.
If you look at point 6, the very fast right-hand kink, Ruskhoek, entrance of Ruskhoek, and we follow the RPM mat, we arrive there, we see on the pink that we are full throttle all the time. We see on the RPM that we are shifting through the gears. Yeah. And on top, we see the number gears. So we go 5th gear, 6th gear, 6th gear. And here, right before he closes the throttle, already way before he closes the throttle, suddenly the RPM rises a lot more than the speed.
Because he's banking.
And that's because he already starts to put the bike on an angle.
That's another scary...
You're going 312 kilometers per hour. They're going to ride on the left side, right on the curb, then put it on their knee to use the inside of turn 6. The RPM goes crazy high, and that's only after that they start to do very little braking here on the bottom. That's one of these typical Assen things that you don't forget if you did them correctly.
It's just worth saying that if we are tripping over, me and Peter are tripping over a little bit with our chat here because we can't. Normally we can see each other and we can wave when we want to talk, but now we can't because we can only see the screen. We're not like you; we can't see everything. So, Peter, will you just take us back to the run towards turn 6 and turn 7, where we were a minute ago? There we go. Okay. If you go down to the very bottom, which is actually obscured by that little data set on your bottom left, but take us back to Steckenval, the super slow corner. You think that the 40 back
Yeah, no, I'm just cleaning my screen because the interesting thing is that at 350 kilometers per hour he closes throttle for turn 6, and he just goes a little bit with his fingers over the brake pressure. Remember, yellow is the brake pressure. A lot more to the right. This is high brake pressure where I am now on the right.
So he's just fingering that front brake.
He's just feathering the brake. He's scared. He wants to put a little bit of load on the tire, but he doesn't really want to slow down.
And that's super important, isn't it? That you even when you don't want to slow down, you want to load the front tire, because if you don't load the front tire, you're going to lose the front. So even you're using the brake not only to stop, but in this case you're actually just using it to load to transfer some load onto the tire. Can you go back towards Steckenval, please? Not Steckenval. Sorry, turn 5.
Turn 5, okay.
Yeah, go back to turn 5.
The slow.
I hope you're all keeping with us, everyone. So that's the super slow corner you see right in the middle of the screen.
Yep. 60 kilometers
per hour. The rider is
going
from 60 kilometers an hour, 40 miles an hour, to almost 200 miles an hour in how many seconds?
I'll tell you now. That is exactly 10 seconds, 560 meters.
10 seconds? Is that
10
long?
seconds.
Okay. But nonetheless, he's going from 40 miles an hour to nearly 200 miles an hour in 10 seconds. I mean, it's insane.
What is interesting here is first gear, 7,700 RPM. This is a really low RPM. Can you imagine how good these engines are? He goes 18,600 in the end. Yeah. And in first gear, he can go at 7,700 RPM, and the thing will always sweet and it's always there. Yeah. But the thing, Matt, that is also was maybe the first thing that I noticed when I look at this data set. Okay, everybody says that Ducati riders have like the bike in their hands. In the right hand, there is not so much ECU interference from traction control and so on. Well, that might be the case in some ways, but in some ways also not at all. The pink line here on the bottom is the throttle. So when he is shortly on full throttle on the sprint to turn number 5, and then he closes the throttle, is braking. But the way you wax open the throttle with 60 km per hour and 7,700 RPM immediately to full throttle, that's stuff I only see on Moto3 bikes. Moto2 bikes can't even do that. They fly. You fly.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a throttle trace that is from the rider's right hand. We call it the grip trace.
Yeah.
And believe me, the real throttles are a lot lacking behind.
Yeah.
I will not be surprised if it is only in halfway through third gear or the end through third gear that both butterfly sets from the V4 engine are really completely open.
So what Peter's saying, that there's kind of two throttle traces. There's the rider's throttle, i.e. how much he's opening the throttle, and that's what this is. And that doesn't necessarily correspond to how much the throttle is actually opening, i.e. how much the butterflies in the fuel injection are opening. So 100%. in this case, for example, he's in very low gear and he's coming out of a super slow corner. So there's no way that the torque, that the ECU will be delivering as much torque as he's giving with the throttle. But basically, it's saying, the ECU will say, no, you've got it on full throttle, but we're not giving full power, full torque to the rear tire because you're going to crash. You're going to slide up. You're going to fire over the high side. So basically what it does is it works out how much torque it can deliver to the rear tire. And this is something we're going to go into in future data pods, which we will get better at, I promise you.
Yeah, because when I have this map, there is a lot of more opportunities. I can imagine comparing this to relative fast super stock bikes that still do 38s on Assen as well, which is a bike that most of our listeners definitely never will be able to ride that fast, but somehow they can relate to it, because that's the guy that flies by unbelievably fast when you have a track day. Now, that guy we can compare to MotoGP and see where the differences are really made and where not. Because believe me, 61 kilometer per hour in the slowest corner of Assen, you and me can do that as well. The problem is, you and me are on 60 kilometer per hour for a long time. Pecco just breaks in and immediately fires it out. He's only for a very short time with a super high lean angle on this low speed. And that, in a nutshell, is the difference between proper race bikes and proper racers. They spend the slow time. The lower speed is not a lot faster than you and me in normal corners, but they are on a very short time on that low speed.
Yeah. And in the future, what we want to do, we're going to do one podcast on traction. Well, one podcast comparing, a track day rider to a MotoGP rider, and another looking at traction control. How does that work? By looking at on data. Next one, looking at engine brake control. Next one, and so on and so forth. So the idea is not to make you turn you all into pit lane geeks, but is to just give you an idea of what these guys are doing and how the motorbikes work. Did we already sort of dissect Myanmar, Peter? I can't remember.
Sorry,
turn
say
12.
that again.
Did we already dissect turn 12? We did, didn't we? Yeah. So is there anything else?
That's
anything
the
else
fast mail where they said a short shift and then they rule it out there. What is important to remember for our listeners that we don't have all the data from the MotoGP bike. We just have this, what is now on screen. I would love to have suspension, to have acceleration sensors, and so on and so on. We don't. They have hundreds and hundreds of signals. We have just this, what we can steal from the videos. But from that, we already can conclude quite some things. But to see how to find out how the bike does this, that's impossible. I only see they do it. They have this amount of brake pressure. They have this deceleration. They have this top speed. They are using these gears. That's already something. But it doesn't tell me how the bike has reached this.
Cool. All right. I mean, is there anything else we want to say? I mean, I hope this has given listeners. Well, in fact, you're not listeners now; you're viewers because you're watching us as well. I hope this has given people a rough idea, a starting point into data and what it can tell us about what the riders and the bikes are doing. Is there anything else you want to talk about the Assen lap, Peter?
No. For me, no. I really want to, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did when I first heard about it, that it's possible to do this. And now I've got it, a couple of the examples in my hand, and I was so keen to share it with everybody out there, because for me it's such an exciting thing. But I also realize that the things that excites me are not always the same things that excites our listeners and our viewers. So I hope we didn't made it too complicated, and you can share our enthusiasm for this.
Yeah, that's always the sort of what we're trying to do is kind of not kind of bore people who aren't super geeks, but and also not speak below the kind of the super fans, super geeks, if you like. So it's always trying to find a kind of middle of the road kind of pattern for talking about that kind of stuff. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope we haven't confused you. And Peter confused me a couple of times, and I'm not very bright, so I just assume that I'm a kind of fairly average brain, and use my brain to kind of sort of work out where the average listener is going to be. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends, support us on Patreon, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye-bye.